Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful day. Be with each and every one of us that's in this room to make good decisions for the Cherokee Nation, Cherokee people. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Call the roll.
Chet Hoskin Jr.
Here.
Buell England.
Here.
Joe Bird. Jody Fishingham. Janelle Fulbright. Don Garvin. Frankie Hargis. Hannah Tori Jordan.
Present.
Lee Keener.
Go on.
Dick Lay.
Here.
Curtis Snell. David Thornton.
Present.
David Walkingstick. Kara Cowanwatts.
Aye.
All right. Councilors, I would direct your attention to this document that was passed out. This is a version of the Tero Act that's in your book with only one change. And if you could direct your attention to page 7, to the section B1, which generated quite a bit of discussion last time. This is a revised version that I hope takes care of some of the concerns. Madam Speaker, do you have a motion on that?
Yes, I have a motion that we go ahead and pass it as amended.
You passed this section. We're still
Yes.
going through the sections.
Yes, page 7, and I believe, have we passed B, the main part yet?
Shelley, do you have anything showing whether we passed B?
I think the whole section was tabled.
Okay, the whole section B was tabled, so we may not need to make a motion, but this section strikes much of the language concerning certifying compliance with these various laws, and it simply tells Tero that if you've got an employer that employs 25 or more employees, they need to certify their compliance with applicable state, federal, and tribal labor and employment laws. And then it has a section that says nothing herein shall impose an obligation on any employer to comply with any such laws for which there is not a pre-existing obligation to comply. So this doesn't create a new obligation. It simply says that if you've got 25 or more people, you need to certify on an annual basis that you're in compliance with these labor and employment laws. So that pares down that section quite a bit, and it leaves it to Tero to fill in the details of that through rulemaking, would be my sense. So I suppose we're still on B. I'd open up any further comments on either that section, which is B1, or anything else on B. Madam Speaker, you still have the floor.
Yeah, my motion would be that we pass the entire B section, starting on page 7, as it's written today.
Okay. Second. We have a second. And Councilman Keener?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Where it starts in the purple there, the first word employee should be employ, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, you are correct, so strike the double E there. Thank you, Councilor. Anything further?
Oh, thank you.
All right, Councilor Cowanwatts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate the new language. I still have 2 outstanding questions. What about the non-Tero businesses in terms of B in the first paragraph about, I guess, the debarment portion or poor performance? Do we not include also, I mean, are we only going to debar? Or are we only going to, impact our Tero businesses, or shouldn't it be all businesses?
If I could respond, I think it should be all businesses with whom we contract with. And if we want to put it in this act or a separate act, I suppose it doesn't make me a difference. But if we can put it in this act, that would be fine. But I do want to see them treated the same across the board, have the same obligations across the board.
Because I remember there was discussion, but I can't remember that we actually came to a conclusion, so I needed to, and if the Councilwoman Jordan can answer that, I would appreciate it, but I still have one more question on this
Will you
section.
yield to her for a response, and then you can get the floor back?
Okay.
I would suggest on the non-Tero, and I agree, we need to list them, whether they're Tero or non-Tero, but I think it needs to be done in a different act. I don't believe that this act should apply to anything except Tero.
Okay, and we can
if they're
take care of it.
non-Tero, we can pass another piece of legislation that puts them on the debarment list. If we decide we're dealing with some non-Tero vendors that are not meeting our expectations, I don't even want them to think they've got the protection of Tero and any of the methods by which people that may be debarred from, because they're Tero and they're not meeting our expectations, they have certain rights that we're giving them in this act. If they're non-Tero, they shouldn't even have that level of protection. So we should do that, in my way of thinking, under a different act. Because I don't want them to think if they're included here, that they have the same protections as those people that went through the Tero certification.
That's a good point. You yield back to the council.
Yes, and I would yield back to
Okay,
Council
so
Ward.
could we take that up, I guess if, it would still be employment, so it'd be executive and finance, that it be took up as an issue, maybe not this coming month, but be prepared for the following, even, so it would be July, be August,
Yeah, yeah.
I would ask that that be a standalone then, so that we know we're not impacting only our Tero, that we need to create that same debarment policy for all vendors, because I think we have those issues and we've seen them in the past.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Mr. Overacre had one thing to say to this, and then you still have the floor, Counselor. Absolutely, absolutely.
So what we're looking at is on the second sentence there, entity shall maintain a debarment list, which shall be a list of Tero contractors. So since we're going to specify this only for Teros, for Tero contractors only, because what we were going to do is if after the law passed, we will have two different policies. We will have one for the Tero vendors who actually, they will have a point A to point F of how they're going to hit the debarment list, which we provide them training at different stages. For non-Tero vendors, if they would have no option, they would go from point A to point F completely. There would be no in between. We would not work with those vendors. Once some department submitted us the complaint, we would automatically do our investigation and then debar them completely. They would have no recourse.
Could you bring a draft policy in August, and if we think that policy covers it, we may not need our act, and we may go ahead and draft up an act, but is there a draft you can bring us by August?
We still have that draft, correct, when we did it on committee? We need the latest one. We have the latest one. We actually formed a committee to actually look at the debarment process. So we will actually get our policies and procedures for that, which we haven't put in place. We were still working through this. So we will send that to you, and then you guys can work on that if that's okay.
And I said August, maybe if you can bring it, yeah, and you'll get it to us before then, I'm sure, but if we'd have by July, we can start kicking it around. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Overacre. And Councilwoman Counterwatch, you still have the floor.
Thank you. And you kind of led into my second question. It's still not clear in the law that there are rights, both at the point where they even get to be heard, that there's another side to the story, and what is the process to appeal it, even if, whether or not they have that right. It is not in the law, and that concerns me, because we're definitely setting up an action against individual Cherokee citizens or others that, as applicable under our law, because they'd be federally recognized tribal citizens, but we're providing them no way out after that, and it seems somewhat one-sided.
Okay. I can answer that on page 11, if we jump to section 25. If any of them believes that this is what goes back, and we actually, any decision made by the Tero, if someone actually does not agree with that decision, they go through the administrative appeals. And that's where we will actually go through there.
May I continue?
Sure. That-
So in this section, and let me see if I can find my notes from earlier, okay, I have no notes, but yes, I appreciate that the retaliation, the whistleblower retaliation kind of interaction, I understand the need for that. But there's not a guarantee of a normal procedural right to go through a process. This seems very negative. I mean, I would think we need it. I don't think it's unnecessary, but there's not a normal process. Like if there's a misunderstanding or we fail to do something on our part and we blame it on a vendor, as an example, if that were the case, there's not a normal process guaranteed in the law to go through that it was just a misunderstanding. The only thing this other section deals with, it seems like, is if it's a retaliation, not just because of a misunderstanding.
Would the councilwoman?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, would the councilwoman yield?
Please, help me understand.
Section 26, you are right that we need to make sure that anyone debarred needs to have a review of that debarment. Mr. Overacre, section 26 says conduct of hearings, says if any employer or a person feels aggrieved by a decision made by the Tero office, they may appeal the decision to the Employee Appeals Board. And I think from there, isn't there an appeal there to the district court, or am I mistaken?
Correct. After the appeals, if the individual or business does not agree with the decision, they can actually appeal it to the district court.
I think
After
Section
that. 26
provides the route for a debarred contractor that feels aggrieved to have that reviewed. That's if I were a contractor and I were
So
debarred, I
it's
would.
26, not 25?
Yeah, I would look to 26.
Okay, I was looking at 25.
That's okay.
Okay,
You have the floor,
well, that's
Councilman.
why we're here as a subcommittee, right? So, okay, that was the questions I had. And if we are going to have a separate item in August ENF to deal with debarment for all, then I'm satisfied. And I think the current motion, just to make sure my mind's clear, is with the amendments as presented in the new copy in the purple. Your motion right now is to do it with the amendments, all of B.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So, since the committee is going to, the council is going to separate it out, so do we need to add that debarment list on section B, which should be a list of Tero contractors? Specify or just contractors in general?
Yeah, we won't mess with putting Tero in there.
Okay.
We'll come back. Our separate act will make it clear that.
Make it clear, okay.
All right, any further discussion on the motion, which is section B in its entirety as amended in the newspaper before?
Is there a second?
There has been a second. All right, all those in favor of passing B as amended, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We passed B. We are now on to section 9. Mr. Overacker, well, first of all, you've struck one word here. Just kind of briefly tell us the purpose of striking that language in this draft.
We actually took out whenever feasible, because whenever feasible is so vague. We are actually, our intention was actually to start forcing the contractors and to actually use Tero subcontractors. All right. So we're going to force that route to narrow so there's no way out, basically.
All right. Any motion to pass 9 as it appears?
You're looking for a motion?
Yeah, just a motion.
Motion to accept
Okay.
section.
Second by Councilman Keener. Any discussion on 9? Councilman Conwans.
So the feedback I've gotten from Tero vendors and employees dealing with Tero vendors is do we have policies set up to create that compliance in? I mean, how are we gonna logistically deal with it? We given our current resources and staff, these staffing levels, how are we gonna enforce that? What are we gonna do?
Normally what we're doing right now, due to our current resources, we actually are forcing the vendors to get bids from Tero vendors, currently the contractors for Tero subs. And if we actually receive a complaint, then we do our investigations on that to verify that that vendor actually called and tried to recruit Tero vendors to assist them in this project.
So you will keep data then on each project showing that the subs were Tero and that they hired Cherokees or Indian people as individual contractors with their full list as well?
Correct. What we're looking at doing, yes, we have a file that has the contractor, and then we'll have files of all the subcontractors that underneath them that will show whether they were Tero or not. Our concern is we want to make sure that they're giving the Tero vendors the option to bid with them. That is why we're trying to push for more mandatory pre-bids. So we have a sign-in sheet so the Tero vendors know when they call the Tero office, hey, we'd like to sub on this. Well, I'm not big enough to do the whole contract, but what vendors do I need to contact to give my numbers to?
Okay.
So that's what we're doing now.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further discussion on 9 to accept 9? Okay. All those in favor of accepting 9, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. 9 is adopted. Section 10, Mr. Overacker, would you walk us through that?
This is taken from the executive order, CS 12-10 CS. Primary preference given to Cherokee citizens and second to all other Indians. That will be Tero certified businesses as well. It's not just a Cherokee owned business, it has to be Tero certified so we can verify that it is owned by the Cherokee, or in the second preference with it is owned by another Native American.
You're on 10 where you have the This is promotions.
Right. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
This is the employment, when actually the council, this committee included Cherokee Nation and its entities as an employer, we require the same, so this is all it is. It used to be, under the old law, it said Indian preference, now we've just carved that out from the executive order for that.
Councilor Karen Watts?
Thank you. Is that Cherokee Nation citizens, or is that Cherokee
It will-
Nation UKV Eastern Band?
It will be Cherokee Nation citizens first.
Thank you. So would they accept that as a friendly amendment? Or did we get a motion? Make a motion with Cherokee Nation citizens.
Okay, yeah, I don't think we had a motion, so you make the motion
Motion.
and Councilor Keener accepts. Anything further, Councilor Conwell?
No, that's it.
Councilor Thornton?
John, on the second preference to other Indians, what do you use to identify those individuals?
We will use their actual cards, their tribal cards that they actually have.
Are you talking about CDIB card or?
Yes, this will more affect like the HR departments of the Cherokee Nation, our entities. I think I don't know how they actually do it now, but they actually, I believe they ask for, they require you, if you're saying you're a Native American, to actually prove it. So it'll be through the HR departments.
But we have so many different tribes out there that aren't recognized for federally recognized.
Under this current law, it will force them to use federally recognized tribes as well. Their current law
Just say
says this.
federally recognized tribes instead of other Indians.
We can change the wording if you'd like to make it a little cleaner if you want, or how you guys actually want that. Our intent was another member from a federally recognized tribe. That's our intent.
That sounds a whole lot better.
Councilor Thornton, would you yield to me for just a second?
Yes.
Page 3, number M, says Indian shall be a person who's a member of a federally recognized tribe. So where we see that term later,
Okay.
I think we've got it covered.
Thank you.
You agree with that, Mr. Overbeck?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else, Councilor Thornton?
No.
Anything else on section 10? All right, all in favor of, oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Keener, I had you down, I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I guess as a friendly amendment, I don't think it reads correctly. It ends in a period, and we need to lead into the A and B. It could say the below is the preference, or the following is the preference. You see what I'm
You want
saying?
to do a colon?
Yeah,
We'll do a
Councilor,
colon.
Colon
That
at
would
the
be
end of
fine.
opportunities?
Colon would
and,
be fine, that'd be better.
Okay.
what's the language, Councilor? Is it
Well,
the preference shall apply as follows?
John made the suggestion with a colon instead of a period, because it doesn't make any sense the way it's written with this, the A and B hanging out there.
Would you agree to put in the preference shall apply as follows, and then it just probably reads a little better if we put a sentence in there?
Right, or the colon, either way.
Okay.
We can actually put their preference will apply as follows, and it'll actually direct
Okay.
it to that.
Okay, very good.
Get that, Ms. Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, the friendly has been accepted, I take it. All right, any further discussion on section 10?
I have one question.
Yeah, Councilman English.
John, this may not fall under this paragraph here, under section 9 or anything, but on the Indian preference, is Tero certified on businesses, are they given a 10% if they didn't go with non-Indian?
As far as the preference,
Yeah, if they're getting a job.
no, actually, it's a different, each entity is different. The government side uses we start out at 5%, it's a sliding scale. And on the entity side, the C and B side, they actually use if a non-Tero vendor is the lowest bid, all Tero vendors have 24 hours to rebid. If a non-Tero vendor is the lowest bid, then we do not allow Tero vendors to rebid, because we don't want to pick one Tero vendor over the other.
So there's an advantage.
Yes, that is, and there will be, after the new law is passed, they will actually have to tweak it a little bit more to apply a one step further Cherokee preference who has, we went through the 4 tiers last month about Cherokee with the major Cherokee employer. That's the best of the best. The second is the Cherokee. The third is the other tribal-owned business or other Indian-owned businesses that hire major Cherokees, and then other Indians. Can I ask one question, please?
Yes, Mr.
On that preference of promotions, do you guys need to make a motion to add that, or can we just apply the preference will apply as follows?
I think that's part of, we're gonna adopt it with that language.
Okay.
I think is the direction we're headed. All right. All right, any further discussion on section 10? All right, all those in favor of approving it as revised, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Overracker, I think now we jump to section 10, or no, page 10, section 23. This is language that I've revised and added to, so I'll give an overview. There was already a language in there that said nothing shall constitute official recognition of unions. I thought it should read nothing herein bars any employer, Cherokee Nation, or its entities from recognizing any union. It doesn't say we have to, it just says nothing prohibits it. That's section 23A. Section 23B just prohibits the Tero, any employer or any Cherokee Nation entity from engaging in activities opposing or endorsing a union. It requires neutrality with respect to union activities. And then section, it actually should be a subsection 1 that says that this prohibition doesn't include refraining from telling people they can go to a union apprentice school to get training. So you have to be neutral when it comes to unions, but it doesn't mean you can't tell a Cherokee, hey, if you want some training, you can go down to the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Hall and get some training. You're not muzzled to that extent. So that's the purpose of that revision. It's mainly in the nature of union neutrality. Any comment, Mr. Overracker?
Basically, we do that right now. We form agreements with, for instance, if the union pipe fitter comes on site, we form an agreement with them that they have to take any Cherokee citizen we send, and they have the right to actually recruit them to the union, but the employee is not required to join the union throughout this term of this job. We've had several instances where actually our citizens have actually joined the union, and we've had some that haven't. They just went out there and worked for 3 or 4 months, and then they left. They cannot hold union dues, their medical or the dues out from their check, so actually our citizens are getting paid a little higher wage because they're not taking the dues out.
Councilor Collins?
Thank you. I didn't understand why we needed to strike the first sentence in A.
Actually, we could keep it, and we could actually keep it.
I would like to keep it. Has a motion been made?
I don't think it has. If you want to make it with that friendly.
I'll make a motion to, for now, accept this language and add that sentence back.
Okay, we'll keep it with restoring the struck
But I
language
have-
in A.
Yeah, and I
Yes.
have additional questions.
Okay.
So, I was trying to read, B and C, or B and B1. I'm concerned, are we prohibiting from our employees or discouraging them from potentially organizing? I'm struggling with understanding what's in this
Yeah,
language.
shouldn't be. It should be that nothing, that the Cherokee Nation entities, and we may want to strike, including any employee or agent thereof, shall engage in activity constituting opposition or endorsement of union activities. I think what we don't want is Cherokee Nation going out to a contractor saying, you guys are organizing, we don't want you to organize, or you guys aren't organized, we want you to organize. We want them to be neutral, we want them to be silent on that issue. I don't want to muzzle employees from exercising any rights. So it could be that we should strike, including any employee or agent thereof. That would probably get it. But I don't want, it wasn't designed to restrict the rights of employees to engage in those activities, certainly.
Yeah, I think so I'm struggling with the sentence in B, that first sentence, because it appears that we are not allowing, I understand about the individual's right in some vacuum to decide, but the reality of organized labor, the way I understand it is, it would take an employee talking to other employees, and it looks like we're prohibiting that, the way I read that sentence.
Well, if we strike the language I just suggested we striking, what we're talking about is the employer, the contractor, that is Tero, has to be neutral. We're not talking about employees, we're talking about the contractor itself.
Okay, so we would strike, I will accept this, to strike the language of the employees, but we
Yeah.
also need to correct the spelling of among.
Yes, yes, you are
Okay.
correct.
Don't be giggling, John. Okay.
That's the old English spelling, by the way.
So-
All right, so with that language struck,
Okay.
corrected. Anything further, Counselor?
No, that was all my questions. Thank you for your
All right, anything
patience.
further, Counselor Keenan?
Would you mind reading that back to us the way we'll read now?
Yeah, we're going to look at section B. Neither the Tero, including any employer or agent thereof, nor any Cherokee Nation entity shall engage in any activity constituting opposition to or endorsement of any union activities among employees of any employer covered by this act. And the rest of the language is unchanged. So what we're really striking is the phrase, including any employer or agent thereof. I think we had a motion, who made the motion to approve this?
I did.
Counselor Cowan-Watts made the motion to approve, and Counselor Engel made the second. All right, so with that revision, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Mr. Overacker, I think that takes us to page 12. Looks like part C, looks like just one word has changed here.
Correct. We just need to change that to or instead of of.
All right, just an error there, all right.
So moved.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Page 13, looking at section 28B on the fines. So, Mr. Overacker, tell us what the thinking is here.
This is giving us some guidelines of actually what the first violations will be. We have to look at the whole, everything the Cherokee Nation, its entities do, from even the small housing contracts to the large projects, casino projects that we're doing. So we're trying to just set it in stone of what the first fine will be. There still is an option of us to triple these fines at any time throughout the definitions behind this. It's just giving us, so everyone knows, because right now, in the current law as it exists, it says up to $5,000. That's kind of it's kind of vague, so we just wanted some direction of how we can put these in steps to proceed.
Let's get a motion, and then we'll get into discussion.
moved.
So move to Councilor Cowan-Watts. We have a second. Second by Councilor England. Any discussion on this item? Councilor Cowan-Watts.
Thank you. I think what I would like to see is if you would bring forward, and it needs to definitely be made public on the website and presented to the Tero folks, but I would like a copy by email on how you're actually going to implement it, and probably provide an example that illustrates, so it's pretty clear to a Tero person. Because the way I read the language around it is, you could have multiple first violations on the same day.
Correct.
And then, you graduate, so I think it needs to be clear, maybe an example to illustrate how those violations could escalate so that they understand. Because I just know small business owners are tasked every day with being multiple hats. And if we give them some legal stuff to read without an example, maybe it probably won't hit the first time, and I would hate to see them penalized and all their profit gone for some of the businesses we're talking about.
Actually, this is why we went so low, due to the housing contracts, the housing rehab contracts that may be $6,000, $10,000. That's why we started out so low at $200. Normally what happens is, the most common occurrence is they bring undocumented workers, somebody, a non-Indian who doesn't have work permits. That is the violations we get the most, where they fill out the core crew list, which we changed that now. And so that's the most common one. And it would be hard for me to find someone $5,000 when their total job is $10,000. So that's why we went to the lower one. It will be there will be multiple fines on the larger projects if we actually were doing a compliance check at Catoosa today at the Casino 3, and there were 30 employees, drywall people that were up there that were undocumented, did not have work permits. That would be 30 times 200. That'd be per violation. And we're going to actually define that in our policy, so you're wanting to look at our policy of how we're going to do that.
I'd like to see the policy and an illustrative example that you're
Okay.
kind of providing to them to help them understand how they could be impacted.
Okay.
Anything else, Counselor?
That's it, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Overbacker, I had a question, and Mr. Carlin, who's in the back, actually raised a couple of issues with me, but he raised one that relates to this. And this isn't a quote from him, but the way I understand it, let's suppose we have today, this law's in place, somebody has a first violation, and then 2 years they have a second violation. Are they really at their second violation, or at some point is the slate wiped clean? Or is it not wiped clean, and we need to keep a running, forever you've got your first offense? I'm just wondering what you all contemplated in this section.
My intent would be yearly, when they these vendors recertify, Tero vendors recertify, we can look at actually, what do we want to recertify a business that's actually violating Tero completely? And two, for the non-Tero vendors, it will allow them a 1-year process, up to 3 violations, $5,000. Because anything after you hit that 4th violation, you're actually, that's when you hit the debarment status from the Tero side, where we actually debar your company for a minimum of 2 years of doing work with us. So would that be something you guys would like us to see in the policy, a 1 year, after 1 year it actually rolls back over, everybody starts with a clean slate, or we can do that in a 2-year interval, whatever the consensus is here.
Well, Counselors, he's suggesting that they wipe the slate clean over some period of time for violations, and we don't address that in the act. Do we want to give Tero some direction? Counselor Cowens.
I would like to see on the second year that there is I don't know what that second, it's not annual, whatever that is. So at 2-year mark, that there is a review of their situation and they have an opportunity to come back.
Come back to wipe the slate clean on their violations,
Yes,
to go
but
back
it
to...
should not be automatic, I don't
Okay.
think.
Okay.
Given some of the things I've already seen with,
We can add that into our policy. 2-year review, at the end of the 2 years, each vendor who has a violation will be reviewed to see if because that will allow us to actually keep the violations if they
some of them are, if it's drastic, it should not be automatic.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you'll reflect that in the draft policy that you come up with to implement that?
Correct.
Okay, all right, very good. We'll review that. Any further discussion on 28B? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. 28B is adopted. Mr. Overrecker, is it possible that that's it? No. Mr. Keener?
Mr. Chair, before we leave page 13 on section 27, appeals from decision of committee, letter C, it says that the appeal may be taken to the Judicial Appeals Tribunal.
Yes.
What page is it?
Page 13.
13C.
Would you be asking us to change that to Supreme Court of the Cherokee
Yes,
Nation? All right. So section C on page 13, we'll strike Judicial Appeals Tribunal and replace it with Supreme Court of the
Second.
Cherokee Nation. Motion's been made second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Good eye, Mr. Keener. Anything else? Counselor Fishinghawk?
No, go ahead and sit there.
Okay. Anything further? Oh, yes, sir, Willard.
Actually, there is on page 2.
Okay. Just could you come forward and let us know what that is? Or is Mr. Overacker gonna?
On page 2.
It would be the definition of emergency. Oh, that's not been passed.
Yes, the emergency definition has not been passed.
Okay.
That is correct.
Well, let's revisit that, counselors. We had some discussion about that last time. Does anyone make a motion to approve this language as written? Madam Speaker has made
I'll make that motion.
the motion, second by Councilor Fishinghawk. Any discussion on the emergency definition? Right. All right. Councilor Thornton, are you just holding a pen, or are you asking? All right, holding a pen. Councilor Fishinghawk?
I'll make a motion to pass this.
Pass the whole thing. Well, let's pass the emergency section first. Adopt the emergency section. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Councilor Fishencock, you're making a motion to. Before we do that, I told Mr. Carlin that he could raise a couple of issues, and we're mindful that this is passing out of subcommittee, and it will then go to, in the normal course of business, to the Executive Finance Committee. So, Mr. Carlin, would you mind come forward and just briefly summarizing those concerns you raised with me before the meeting? And while we might not have time to do anything about that today, it might not influence whether we pass this, but we might take it up at E&F.
Thank you very much. One of the three concerns we had was addressed with the fines, the graduation of the fines, and is there a time period? And I think that explanation helped a great deal. Another was the definition of emergency itself. We were concerned about what constituted an emotional or financial burden. And how that is defined. We kind of saw that as nebulous, and I didn't know if there could be any clarification provided there. The last was in concerns of the definition of contractor, where it includes Cherokee Nation businesses and all of its entities. In some instances, we will go out to bid for services and goods that we need. One of the most recent transactions included purchasing office cubicles from one of our sister companies. Ultimately, it was through a competitive bid process, and that sister company was a Tero certified firm, and we followed the Tero process when we made that award. Other instances, though, we have resources at times that we have maybe as such as a shared service under the CMB umbrella or the CMB parent company that potentially could be used by one of its sister companies. And the example I provided was potentially an IT resource. If we have some IT resources that work for CMB, but they need some IT work done at C&E or another company, those personnel are sometimes used there. As a contractor, how would Tero apply is our concern. If those IT personnel aren't Cherokee citizens, would we have to pay a license fee for them to work for our sister company, et cetera? So what we were looking for and would like to ask for some consideration is in those types of situations, could there be an exemption for intercompany transactions?
Mr. Overacker, if we pass this as it's written there with the definition of contractor, how do you see that impacting shared services or this other type of contracting between these sister entities?
The only thing we can do is meet with the C&E, with Jason and other people there to see what the best route to go. We actually treat their sister companies as Tero vendors, as we have made every sister company that we own become Tero certified, because our law is based on Tero certification, not sister companies that we own. So there may be some things that we can work through this. Our concern is how often are they going to do this? Because, for instance, if it's an IT contract or something, we do have IT companies that are Tero, so we'll have to proceed very careful how actually we're going to proceed in cutting out Tero vendors, but using a Tero vendor that's our sister company. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. When we spoke earlier, it may take us a week to hammer out all the details. Under the current law as well, if this is passed, under this law, if this is passed, when CNB actually comes to perform work, or their IT department or someone else, and if they have non-Indians, they will have to pay the $25 a day. We cannot go around the law if they're working on our projects. So we can't squeeze that out, but we can actually work on some different ways to allow us to use our sister companies. In our general provisions currently right now, we do allow for C&E or CMB to actually negotiate contracts with our Tero vendors, which that is being done currently. So they will still have that avenue to negotiate contracts with their sister companies, as long as they're Tero certified.
Okay. Anything further, Mr. Carlin?
Again, I think if a clarification could be made on the emotional burden or financial burden in relation to the definition of emergency as well, that's something we have concerns about how that could apply.
Understood. Councilor Cohen-Watts?
I'm not opposed. I don't know how the rest of the body feels that maybe CMB with their vast array of lawyers look at it and propose as actual amendments that we could consider. at rules when this
Yeah.
comes to rules.
Yeah. Does this go to E and F next, though, I think?
Oh, yeah, actually, yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
so-
You know.
By next, I mean, we could pass this to E and F today, but I assume we would pass it to E and F next month. And if we do that, Mr. Carlin, can you get back to your folks and ask them
Absolutely.
to propose some amendments? We'll take a look at it. Yes, Counselor?
I would request we get those amendments at least 2 weeks prior so that we can review them and look at them, make sure the AG's office and our attorneys look at that as well.
I agree with that. If you would get those to Shelley, and then we'll get those distributed to all the council members, and then we can try to work on it. And also, Mr. Oberacker. Sure. Okay. All right, thank you, thank you. Councilor Fujinok, I cut off your motion to approve the whole thing a while ago. Do you want to remake that motion? All right.
Okay.
Second by Councilor Hardis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. We'll pass this on to Executive Finance for July, and then we still have an Employment Act to work on, is that correct?
That is correct. We are probably going to need some guidance as far as what you guys are wanting to include. We do have some, a Workforce Investment Act coming from the National Tero office that they have. I would like, if it was okay, to send that to each of you, so that way you can take a look and see which parts we want to put in and what we don't want to put in, and things like that. It'll kind of give us a map or a guideline of what we want, and then we can go from there if that would be okay.
All right, very good. Well, let's go ahead and we'll schedule this time next month for our next subcommittee meeting, and maybe we'll have something between now and then.
I will get that to you as soon as possible.
Okay, very good. All right, any announcements? Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by you, second by Councilor Karen Watts. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, we're adjourned.